Welcome to Safe and Seen with JB and Candy, the real ROI of relational leadership.
This is where leadership gets real, business gets personal, and connection creates measurable impact.
Because leadership isn't always about finding the right solution.
Sometimes it's about asking the right questions,
And then having the courage to really listen.
to seek to understand before needing to be understood.
So, what happens when we create workplaces where people feel safe enough to speak their truth?
And seen enough to bring their full brilliance.
That's what we're here to explore.
The real stories, the hard questions, and the messy middle.
And the very real ROI of leading relationally.
Let's begin.
Welcome to Safe and Seen.
Hey everyone, I'm Candy Barone.
And I'm JB Braden.
Welcome to the show. I'm curious, JB, what do you want to lean into today as we talk about relational leadership?
Well, we talk a lot about relational leadership when it's just you and I talking, and we want to bring the audience into what exactly does that mean for a leader to be relationally. And so for me, and I think for both of us, we're talking about as a leader, leading from a place of being the servant, okay? And making the relationships that you lead most important.
Yeah, and you know what I think is interesting is you and I've had a lot of conversations about the work we do. And I think, both of us have 30 plus years of doing leadership work in some capacity. And through that, we've built frameworks and playbooks. And I know you have developed a playbook specifically around redefining leadership and grounding leadership. And I thought maybe it would be a great place for us to start as we talk about that servant leadership and what that really means and why building relationships is so fundamental when it comes to the new currency in business, when it comes to everything that's shifting. And so why don't we start there? Why don't we talk about your playbook, what it is and how you got there, and then let's maybe bring it forward into some of these conversations around why relationships matter so much.
I love that. Let's do it. How it came about. As you said, over 30 years combined, over 35, 40 years combined.
Actually, I was going to say it's about 30 years individually, right?
Yeah, 30 years individually of working with leadership, studying leaders. And for me, one of the things, because I have a sports coaching background, as you well know. And so in my sports coaching background, I started talking about and teaching the mind of a champion and how the mindset of a champion can transform how an athlete performs. Well, when I started in leadership and coaching leaders, I noticed there's a concept that could really benefit leaders, and that was how to think like a champion. Okay. So I started putting the concepts of leadership together with a champion's mindset. And how can you develop, so to speak, the ultimate leader? A leader, someone who people want to follow.
So when you say champion's mindset, before we even get into some of the key foundational pieces of what you've built inside this playbook, what does that mean? I think that sometimes we use phrases and words that people can nod their head and be like, yep, got it.
Yeah.
And I know, and I'm guessing you've probably experienced this too in your corporate career and in business. oftentimes the business bingo everybody agrees to, but we're not really grounded in the same
Right.
definition. And so I've heard people use the phrase a champion's mindset,
Yeah.
leader's mindset. What does that actually mean to you? Like what does that mean, and how does that actually show up as an act and demonstration of
Yeah.
leadership versus just being the got it
Yeah.
business buzzword of the day?
I love it. Well, when you think about a champion, one of the key words you said earlier was fundamentals. Okay. So a champion focuses on the fundamentals. Okay. The fundamentals of their craft. That's their goal. They want to perfect that. So that's the first thing. They also, it's very important. They is one. This is one of the codes that's in the playbook. Their mindset is to get really good at the boring stuff. I call it master the mundane. Okay. Because they get really good at doing the ordinary things extraordinarily. Okay. And so that's one thing. And so they focus on the process as well. A lot of us, we focus on the outcome. Well, champions focus on the process, and they fall in love with the process, the training. Okay. So that's how they think. And they also have this mindset that I can't do it alone.
Right.
So they surround themselves with the right people to challenge them, okay, to sharpen them, and to help them grow and become better. So having the right people around them is also very important, because a real champion knows that they cannot do it by themselves. I don't care if it's a golfer, okay, where when you're out there, it's an individual sport, but all the top golfers, when you think about it, they have someone that works with them. All the top athletes do. All the champions do. And so those are some of the mindset of a champion that a leader can take on to make them a better leader. Okay. Mastering the mundane, being present and understanding that this feels boring, but this is important.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that a little bit because it's interesting. I was just having conversations this week, even in terms of discipline and the grit, and it's the behind the scenes, right? Because I think about, I'll even take someone like Kevin Hart, who people would say, oh, he was an overnight success, and he comes back and he's like, sure, 12 years in dive bars, playing at the worst hours of the day,
Right.
being out there in these darkened, smoky, gross. Yeah, you're right. Overnight success after all that behind the scenes work is done. And so there's a couple things in what you said I think is so fundamental. Again, to come back to that word, one, master the mundane. And I was just having conversations with clients in a mastermind I run, which was discipline is a sacred devotion to your dreams and desires. So that discipline, that thing that feels like I don't want to do that every day. If you're a writer, if your dream is to write and express yourself in art through writing, you need to be writing even when the writing sucks.
Yes.
Like, it's not just you get a download and you get to write and all of a sudden it's like the masterpiece comes out. To your point, mastery takes practice.
Yes.
It takes time, it takes discipline. And what's interesting is when we talk about mastering the mundane, it is I think about athletes like Michael Jordan or Michael Phelps or Simone Biles, or the repetitive things that where they can find their edge.
Yes.
And inside of that, to your point, where they don't go at it alone. Because even when you're like, they have a person, they have more than a person. They have a mindset coach.
Right.
They have a physical nutrition coach.
Right.
They have a coach for each aspect of what they need in that mastery, that each one of those people in their circle also has a mastery that they've created discipline for. And what it allows us to do that I think we're missing a lot of times when we play in this space of I got to carry it all or I got to do it all, and we don't recognize that leadership is a team sport, is the fact that we think we got to do all the things when actually we need to surround ourselves and ground ourselves in a way where we can do the thing we do really, really well. And create an edge. Because I always look at a true champion has an edge.
Yes.
They're willing to. I look at someone, one of my favorite ball players of all times. My old dog was named after him, Walter Payton.
Yeah.
When he came to Chicago, everyone said he's not fast enough, he's not big enough, he's not.
Yeah.
And he worked tirelessly. He used to run with a tire
Yes.
up a hill in his neighborhood in Naperville. He had an edge.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning became the quarterback he did because he was the first to show up.
Yeah.
He was the last to leave. Yeah. And he took he went that extra mile, right? They talk about constantly, we hear the adage all the time in leadership that it's always empty on the extra mile. There's a reason for that, because it's that grit, it's that mundane, it's that one more push-up, yes, one more call, right, one more way you're creating that visibility.
Yes.
There's a lot of magic in mastery of the mundane. Mm-hmm. And like I was just expressing, I think there's a devotion we create, yeah, that if this is the dream, if this is the thing we desire, including how we lead and how we're building our business, mm-hmm, we got to be willing to do the discipline, yeah, to get the mastery of the mundane.
Yeah, and I agree. And say the mistake that most people make is they think leadership has to be lonely. Yeah. But it doesn't.
Yeah, what a bunch of crap.
It doesn't. It doesn't have to be. Exactly. It's a bunch of crap because it doesn't have to be lonely. You've designed it that way, which makes it so difficult. Mm-hmm. And for some people who make it difficult, let's just talk real. Mm-hmm. It's because they don't want to surround themselves with people that will challenge them.
Or hold them accountable.
Which a good leader will do that. That's what champions do. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say it's very important for a leader to understand how a champion thinks, because a champion wants to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. Think about that.
Yeah.
How can they get to their best if they're not? And so they surround themselves with people who will do that. And so that's where leadership relationally can change. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because you're putting people around you that will challenge you, mm-hmm, that will ask questions. Okay. As a leader, it makes you better.
Well, yeah, because those people, and by the way, it's not all people, because we're going to talk about that too.
Yes.
It's not about, you're not here for everybody. It's not about creating a space where everyone has access to.
Right, exactly.
Because I will tell you, fair, as you master the mundane and as you start to create a champion's mindset, you become very discerning about who has access to you and where your time and effort goes. Because I would also offer that in that lens, there is a focus, mm-hmm, that says, my due north says it's mastery of this. It's not getting caught in the noise and the drama and the whatever is like behind me. That's the judgment, the criticism, because it's not about having people that criticize you. It's about having people that help you see the blind spots.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, and I love the way Brene Brown says this in her body of work. Feedback is absolutely necessary, mm-hmm, for mastery. Yeah. And not all feedback is good feedback.
Correct.
Though when you are ready for feedback from those people that you know, like, trust, respect, mm-hmm, you need to be wide open for that feedback.
Yes.
Without your own judgment and filters, to receive the feedback so that then you can take agency and have discernment around what to do with that feedback. Yeah. And that is where so many leaders, and I almost want to use air quotes, because I find it hard to call somebody a leader when they have isolated themselves out, or it's a power over equation, because leadership does not happen in isolation.
No.
And when people think leadership is only out, like, I'm gonna lead these people, yeah, my first question always is, and how are you leading yourself?
Yes.
Because there is no leadership out when there isn't leadership in. And to hear what you're saying from a champion's mindset, yeah, it's then how do I bring those people in that help me get better at leading from within, so that then I can do that servant leadership,
yeah,
out.
Well, there's two things that you said that taps into the reason why I created the playbook. Okay. One of those was discernment. Mm-hmm. Okay. very important that we learn to lead with discernment.
Mhm.
So important.
What does that mean? Let's just stop there for a second.
Yeah.
What does discernment mean when you say
What
that?
it simply means being able to sit back, listen, evaluate the situation, the direction you need to go, and then leaning into your experience and your wisdom to make the right decisions.
Right.
Okay.
And when I hear right decisions, it's decisions that are aligned to move your dream, desire, and vision forward.
Yes. And so that's where it comes from. The playbook is for a leader to self-assess themselves.
Mm.
Okay. Sharpen their discernment, but also to self-assess, where am I at? The accountability we're talking about, the playbook also leans into that, because you can now, it's kind of like, I like to say it's kind of like a roadmap or a Bible, so to speak, for a leader to be able to, how am I in these 10 areas? Grade themselves in those areas so that they can then self-account for where they are. Become a better leader relationally. Okay.
So somewhat of a map or a blueprint.
Absolutely.
For them to say, and so when you talk about there's 10. There's 10 core codes that you have in your playbook.
Right.
Let's talk about what those are as you talk about a champion's mindset.
Absolutely. The first one, as a champion does, is own the outcome. Okay. And so what that means is eliminating all excuses. Because see, the excuses are the language of defeat. And so a champion doesn't make excuses when things doesn't go well. What does a champion do? They look inward and say, okay, what could I have done? What could I have done better? Well, that's what a leader needs to do. Okay. Sure. Maybe that person in sales didn't make enough phone calls. Okay. But as a leader, I'm not going to point to that and say, okay, it's your fault. I'm going to say, what could I have done to help you do your job better?
So let me ask you a question inside of that, because this conversation's come up a lot lately, and I have a take on it, but I'm curious where yours is. Because when I hear about own the outcome, one of the things I don't see enough leaders do is create space for people, especially within their team, to own the outcome. So what happens is, because while I think there is a higher level of accountability, it says, look, if I've got somebody on my team that's constantly dropping the ball, I need to understand why they keep dropping the ball. And I need to understand as a leader what my role is. Am I not supporting them? Am I not clear about expectations? And I think the other question that sometimes is missing, and I'm curious your take on this, because this has really shown up in the last couple of weeks in conversations, is, am I actually giving them full ownership of said outcome? Because I think there's also an opportunity in that code that you're talking about, that it's not just the leader, whoever that is. I think sometimes it's like the little mouse in your pocket, the leader, versus recognizing we all are leaders and have opportunities to lead in how we show up. But are you, as the person who has ultimate accountability, are you extending space for people to really take ownership? Because oftentimes what I see, and I'm curious in the companies and the teams you work with, I see a lot of people say they've given ownership, but then they micromanage, or then they get very controlling over how something's going to move through a process, or they tell somebody the prescriptive way that it needs to be, versus this is the outcome, this is the expectation, this is the delivery and deadline.
Well, let's just be real. Micromanagement, nobody likes it. Okay. People are afraid to call it out. And it's not leadership.
Not at all.
It's not leadership. It's a power trip and it's control. Okay. And for those leaders out there who think they need to micromanage, you're not being a good leader. Correct. It's just that simple.
Well, you're not giving people the opportunity
exactly
to anything.
Well, you're what I like to call it is you're shackling your people from becoming the leader they should be. Because another thing about a leader is to be able to have the ability to develop other leaders. Okay. And if you're not developing other leaders, you're missing the mark as a leader.
Right.
And that's where it ties into that own the outcome, because when you model what own the outcome looks like, then you give your people, your leaders, the courage and the freedom and the permission to also own their outcome. So that's why the playbook is important, because it's a check. Say, okay, am I doing that?
Right.
Okay, because then if you can then look at your leaders underneath you, and you recognize, okay, well, they're not doing that. Well, why not?
Right.
Because is it because I'm not modeling it? Right. And so that's why that's important on the outcome. The next one, the code number 2 leads into exactly what you were talking about, because you just asked the question: are the people on the team, are the other leaders, do they own? Are they owning it? Well, code number 2 is lead with a purpose. Okay, because when you lead with a purpose, that means everybody on your team knows the purpose. And having a purpose is having a direction. Okay, how many leadership teams, how many companies have you worked with where people don't even understand the mission? They don't even know the purpose. They just know that they're tasked.
And I would offer, because I love your code, I want to offer you a word to even lead with a shared purpose.
Yes.
Because there is a shared, you cannot have ownership of a purpose if there is not a shared sense of said purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. And being able to communicate. That's why communication is so key in leadership. Okay. Because not only do you need to understand your purpose, where as an organization am I taking my people, and then being able to communicate that. Because as a leader underneath you, if I understand the purpose, and then I also understand how my role helps drive the purpose, then I'm taking ownership.
Yeah.
And that's where we miss the mark a lot.
Yeah.
Because we're not leading with a purpose and then communicating that purpose to our team. This is what we're about.
Yeah.
This is our goal. This is our direction.
One of the biggest things I see in areas of missed alignment is there is no clarity.
Yes.
Around vision, purpose, strategy, mission, direction.
Yes.
That then there are these arbitrary metrics to gauge whether or not someone is successful, when no one, including the person who holds said vision, is set up for success.
Yeah.
And I find it so astonishing that one of the biggest things that unravels when I get into organizations I work with is, what is it you're actually trying to do? What is the overarching purpose and vision that you are moving towards? And they're like, well, and if they have their values, they're like these words on a wall, but I'm like, what do they actually mean? Are they lived and embodied? Are they your metric for how you measure everything? Or is it a nice thing to say and have, but the lack of clarity, around the what and the why is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
And I know we're kind of laughing and joking about that, but it's the reality that more times than not, lack of ownership, lack of being able to lead, communication comes down to nobody's clear on where due north actually lands.
I know. And I'm laughing because when we're talking about this, you've probably heard this. I hear this way too much, and it drives me nuts how people are always complaining about how many meetings they have. And none of the meetings have a purpose.
No.
People don't even know the purpose of the meeting. So leaders out there having meetings without a purpose.
Right.
People don't like it. They don't want it.
Well, they're not helpful.
They're not helpful. It's a waste of time.
There's either not an agenda, or there's an agenda that there's a question on the top, and then there's already a solution on the bottom. And I'm like, okay, if you already know the answer, then meeting already waste of time.
Right.
But 2, if you're coming in thinking you're going to ask a question and no one, again, we open up our show with, look, it's not about the answer sometimes. It's not about the solution. It's, are you even asking the right questions?
Yes.
And so many times, even in my own corporate career, I got called the queen of derailing agendas because I'd come in and I'm like, I'm going to ask a question. You say this, but do you realize this is going to affect this, going to affect this, going to affect this, and it's going to be the domino effect. And people are like, oh my God, are you going to derail another? I'm like, are you going to come in and assume you got it all figured out? Because first of all, if you do, stop inviting me in this room. You're wasting my time. And second of all, if you do you really?
Yeah.
And the whole way we structure this is a whole another conversation for
I was
another
just about
show,
to say that.
y'all.
I was about to say.
The whole way we structure and organize meetings
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
asinine, in my opinion, and it's a waste of everybody's time. And by the way, there are very rarely ever a meeting where more than 5 or 6 people need to be in a room.
Exactly. And so
20 people to have a conversation that 20 other people have, that they all got to get in agreement is not a functional meeting.
And listen, people. We'll have an entirely different show on meetings, okay? But and so we're gonna bring it back to we're gonna bring it back to this. But just know we'll have a whole nother show on meetings. And so code number 3 was master the mundane, which we talked about. Code number 4 is move before you're ready. What does that mean? Move before you're ready. Okay. Here's the mistake that most people make. The champions understand. Okay. Champions understand that courage comes from taking action.
Yep, not action.
Most people think that you take action to get courage. No, right? And so that's what I mean by move before you're ready. How many times in our lives where we're sitting around waiting, we're waiting till we're ready.
Well, it's the same thing about motivation, right? People think motivation comes once momentum gets moving.
Yeah.
Absolutely inverse equation.
Right.
You got to get momentum moving. It's physics. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. And if you are you have inertia, you're not doing anything when you're waiting for some magical pixie fairy dust to come sprinkle down on you and be like, it's time, JB. Do the thing. Here, you asked for courage. Here it is. No, you get the things that actually work the muscle of courage that says, are you really committed? And it comes back to what we were just talking about. Are you clear about what it is you actually want, that you can lead with purpose to then know this is the inspired and aligned action I need to take to get said momentum and action going.
Did you see what you just did? What she just did, you may have missed it. What she just did was she tied it in how it all works together. When you have that purpose, now you have the direction. Well, guess what? When you have direction, now you have the actions to take, right? And so now you're not just sitting around waiting for the right time.
For magical Tinkerbell to come down and bequeath you some pixie dust.
Because that's not going to happen.
No.
Right?
And if it does, it's not coming from your desire, it's coming from someone else's agenda.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that people miss. This is the other thing that people miss, and I talk about this a lot, okay? When you move when you're ready, before you're ready, you're taking action. You're moving forward. And the thing that we can't do is be afraid to make a mistake. Be afraid that that's not going to work.
We're going to do a whole show.
That's another whole show, right? But that's the fear. Okay, that fear paralyzes a lot of leaders, a lot of people, but especially leaders. And they're like, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if it doesn't? You're going to learn something.
Great.
Then you learn what didn't work.
Fail fast, fail hard.
Yes.
On purpose. There's a great book by John Maxwell called Failing Forward that literally, and you look at a champion. I'm going to take Michael Jordan again, one of the best Nike commercials ever was when he's like, I've missed 9,000 shots. I've missed this many championship moments. I've missed all these reasons that I failed is why I succeed. If you look at, I saw somebody post the other day that talked about hit rate. Babe Ruth had like a hit rate of 12%, but he took 8,000 swings to have the amount of home runs and hits that he had in his career. Like any successful champion recognizes it's the Wayne Gretzky, you'll miss every shot you never took, right? Like it's not about I'm going to get it right every time. It's about how do I fail and get the things out of my way. I don't even know what works until I experience what doesn't. And failure is a freaking superpower. This notion we have around failure is a myth. It's not even a thing.
It's not.
The only failure, and I sound like a school teacher going about to say this.
I know what you're about to say.
The only failure is not doing anything and not trying.
And I say it all the time.
Like failure is not a thing.
It's not.
Us not hitting the target means there's a growth trajectory. Because here's the
Yes.
thing, and you know this as well as
Yeah.
I do. I've been in those organizations where they're like, we've hit every target and every goal. I'm like, you're not growing. You're dying on a vine, and this is why your culture sucks. And this is why you're not seeing the scalable, sustainable growth that you actually want. And this is why you're not getting a new kind of client. It's because you're doing, I worked for an organization once that I still don't know how I got the job. Mind you, I had a fever during the interview, so I was no filter. But they were like, this is what we've done for 155 years. And my response was, how are your doors still open? Like, if you are hitting the target every time, if you're doing the same damn thing over and
Right.
over and over again, you are missing the growth trajectory and your own
Yes.
opportunity to step through
Yeah.
your growth edge.
Yeah.
And every champion that I know is hungry for the
Yes.
growth edge.
Yeah. And so here's the question for our leaders out there. If you're waiting to move, ask yourself a question. What am I afraid of? Okay. Because if you're afraid of making a mistake,
Mhm.
if you're afraid of not looking polished, that's what you're modeling for your team.
And I'm going to layer on a second question. What's it costing you?
What's it costing you? Absolutely.
Because every decision and indecision, whole nother conversation
Yeah.
as well, those decisions you choose not to make because you're like, I'm just not going to make it, are more costly than the ones you do.
Absolutely.
You can always make a different decision.
Yeah.
But what I want you to recognize is every thought you have, every belief you have, everything you say, everything you take action on has a cost or an investment. And I'm going to use the analogy where my mom used to say to me, she's like, my God, your groceries are so expensive. And I said, but they're a known entity.
Yeah.
My groceries, because I know what I shop for, I know what I feed my body with, is an investment in my wellness and health.
Right.
Her expense and unknown is I'm just going to do whatever. And then I've got medications or
Right.
I've got hospital visits or I have other things. Everything has a price associated. Is it an investment or is it a cost? And I would offer that if you are not willing to move through and take the action required,
It's costing you.
what is it costing you?
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely an expense you are not tracking on your quote P&L, and not just P&L for your business, it's a P&L for your life.
Most people don't. Most people don't. I love that, Candy, and that's a great additional question to really think about. And so the next code, so that's 10. So number 5 is choose future freedom. When we talk about discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. Okay. Where are you being undisciplined in your leadership, in your accountability, and holding people accountable, and communicating your, like as we said, your purpose. Okay. In training leaders to be leaders. Okay. So
short
are you
game
making
versus long game,
yeah,
right?
are you making shortcuts? Those are costing you. Those are costing you. Number 6 is never stop
But I
growing.
think stop there for just a second, because I think we lose sight. We have a culture right now that is all about instant gratification, entitlement, and rapid success, rapid rewards.
Right.
We do that at the cost of our future selves.
Yes.
It is a long game,
It is.
mastering the mundane. It is a long game to create that discipline. It is a long game to keep scaling and growing beyond our growth's edge. And we have gotten very, especially in light of all of the things that are so easily accessible to us, we have gotten lost in instant gratification and rewards versus at the expense and at the death of our future self.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to be said around champions. Really, they make decisions based on what would my future self.
Oh, yes.
What is future me? What is future Candy? Because, and I think about Benjamin Hardy did this work with Dan Sullivan, but the 10x is easier principle than 2x. It's because what happens, and I think this is important to ground in this conversation, because it really talks to the codes that you have. Too often in the present, first of all, we're not present. We're either too worried about what happened, we're rehashing the past, or we're anxiety inducing future projecting the future.
Which is the problem.
Which neither is keeping us present.
Right.
When we do come to the present, oftentimes it's a version of the past that we're still living now versus I see the future me. How do I call that forward? Because if I can call forward future me, the future leader, the dream, the vision, and I bring her into this moment, I make very different decisions based on what future me needs versus what past me is still trying to heal as trauma or a story that didn't get resolved.
Yeah.
And so we have an opportunity. It's why the windshield is this wide,
Yes.
and the rear view mirror is this.
Yes.
Because we need to look in the back for the patterns, the past, the
lessons.
Yes. That are carried forward, the wisdom. But it's, if this is where I'm going, we don't put into our navigation tool, help me get to future destination by rehashing where I've already been.
Exactly.
But why then do we lead from that capacity?
Yes.
It's the ability to say, what would future me, as the leader I am becoming and choose to be, what would she decide in this moment for the long game? Not, well, it just feels easier right now.
Yeah.
And that's too uncomfortable. And that's too hard. And I think that really, when you talk about that space of they are leading for that future.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything, right?
It is.
And it's a big differentiator between a champion's mindset and those
That's correct.
that are just running on repeat.
Well, think about it. Think about it from a champion as well. Okay, future, they're going for the future freedom, right? Which is why they have the daily discipline. They understand what they want. What's the end goal? This is where I want to go. Okay, so guess what? I can't skip this train.
No.
Okay.
And they know what it's required to sacrifice to hold themselves in the discipline and the mastery of the mundane.
Yeah. So let's take it back to a leader. Let's take it back to a leader. If you're building a certain culture, okay, and you see behaviors over here that are unacceptable, but yet you ignore it. When you ignore it, that means you're accepting it, and that's going to grow. That's bypassing the discipline to say, that's not acceptable here.
Right. And hence we get the sacred cows and the elephants. And
absolutely. And what does that do down the road? Okay. And so that's what we're talking about.
Cost you the very culture you think you have. Absolutely.
And so putting that together as a champion who stays disciplined, leaders need to stay disciplined as well, even when it's tough. It's not easy to hold people accountable on a regular basis. That's part of being a leader, right?
And it starts with true accountability as a self-internal gain,
which is part of what
that's modeled for others. And leaders make the difficult decisions that are not popular, that are uncomfortable.
Right.
It is when you accept the role or the torch of leadership that say, I get what this is required, what's required.
And when you do that, you know what happens as well? It allows your people who are following you to feel safe, to feel safe to follow you.
100%. And feel safe to stretch their own boundaries. And
because they see you
to
doing
come back to your point, it's that space. And it's companies that I love. There are actually companies that celebrate people's failures more than they celebrate the success, because the failures say you're pushing beyond and you're not letting status quo keep you numb. Because when there is safety, you want to talk about really being safe and seen, it's to be in an environment that lets you fall down.
Well, not only
and encourages you to fall down, because that's part of the growth journey.
It's part of the growth journey. And we're not talking about mastering failure. What we're talking about is talking
about mastering failure to a degree.
But here's the thing. It's also when you talk about that, it's mastering growth.
It is, and it's mastering a redefinition of failure. It's not mastering the way our culture talks about, because I actually do think there's a mastery of failing. How can I fail hard? How can I fail fast? Where are my tension points? How do I challenge the status quo? How do I bust path? I think it's interesting, and I know you've experienced this. When people are like, well, that's not what you said 3 years ago. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that 3 years ago. My beliefs and opinions are allowed, and perspective are allowed to change. My core fundamental values of who I am as a person, my integrity does not change. My values on how you treat people and how we create environments does not change. But my mindset, my perspective, what I believe, what I think, policies, processes, ways we operate, infrastructure, all that's up for, I can change my mind in a minute as soon as I get something new.
New information.
Breakthrough's not this big, huge, ginormous thing. It's the minute we have access to something we didn't have.
Right.
When we get access, we have a responsibility to say the discernment, to your
That's it.
point, to say, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And is this a nugget I didn't have that changes the course that I can go deeper
Yeah.
and I can lead better and I can
Yes.
do? I sure as hell hope I'm not still spewing the same things I was spewing 30
Right.
years ago. Now, that being said, core fundamental values
Core fundamentals different.
don't change.
That's different, yeah.
But my beliefs,
Yeah.
my leadership strategies, my playbooks, they have changed to some degree
And
because they're matching where we're evolving in our own consciousness and as a collective.
yeah, if you're evolving, if you're growing, you should expect those to change. You should expect those to change.
Which is one of your next codes, isn't it?
Never stop growing.
Never stop growing. Because if you
Never
stop
stop growing.
growing, what happens?
The moment growth stops, leadership declines.
It dies.
It dies.
We don't realize we're wired.
Yeah.
We're like, so we need to stretch.
Yeah.
And the neuroplasticity,
Mhm.
our neurons, growth mindset, there is a real science-based study that talks about why we need to grow.
Yeah. And if you, as a leader, if you ever get to that point where you feel like you've arrived as a leader, I don't care if you've been leading for 30-something years.
Yep.
You're dead.
It's time to go find a new
It's time to-
hobby,
it
a
is.
new passion,
It is.
a new career. Because the minute you get
Yeah.
complacent, and I see, how many times do we see this in the C-suite?
Mhm.
We see leaders who are checked out. They got their pension, they got their
Yeah.
package, they got their, it's like, then you're done.
And you know what you're doing?
You're done.
First of all, what I call what you're doing is you're committing leadership malpractice.
I was just going to say it's extremely irresponsible.
It's very irresponsible.
It's leadership suicide, it's leadership malpractice, and
Yes.
you are shortchanging the growth of every single person under your leadership.
Because you've forgotten when you get to that point where you feel like you've arrived, you've forgotten your whole purpose as a leader. It's not all about you.
There's no arriving anyway.
There
We
isn't.
at an end point perhaps in this lifetime, but the whole point of life is an evolution,
Right.
is a learning, it's a journey. To your point from at the beginning, it is about the process, it's the journey itself.
Yes.
We all have a soul curriculum. I was just having this conversation this morning. There are themes that you are never going to figure out. There isn't healing that all of a sudden you've arrived and it's done. You have core themes that are here to keep helping you grow and evolve in your leadership and in your gifts. It's part of the magic. It's part of what.
Not the magic. I love that. No, the magic is part of the responsibility as a leader, because as I was saying, it's not all about you or the people you are leading. Okay. The people you are leading, do you want them to become better leaders? Because if you
Wow.
don't, then you're not being a good leader, right? And if you stop growing as a leader, you're stunning their growth as a leader.
Mhm.
And so that's why that's important. Never stop growing.
Yeah,
Never stop growing. The other thing is, and we talked about this a little bit, build your circle carefully. That's where that discernment comes in, right? Because one of the things you said earlier was not everybody gets access. Well, think about the champions we talked about. They have certain people that get access. Not everybody gets access.
And they are very limited in how many people get their access to
Very
them.
limited.
100%.
And leaders are the same way. You can't lead alone. Okay. But you also can't have open access where everybody has access to you.
No,
Okay.
because there's a requirement, and it's not to create an elitist or an exclusionary space, and yet it is.
Mhm.
Because I know, as I've grown in a leader, while I want to help as many people as want to be helped,
Yeah.
I am not willing to offer advice, counsel, coaching, guidance to someone who doesn't show up
Right.
and lead themselves first.
Yeah.
I don't take clients anymore that aren't demonstrating that they are at a growth's edge and they take responsibility
Mhm.
and they are trying to grow. I don't work with people still stuck in victim mentality or
Yeah.
martyrdom, or because for me, that's a waste of my time.
Yeah.
And I say that with all the love and grace that I hope they find their path. But my path is not to pull everybody out of the trenches. My path is to help people move through their cycles and thresholds
Mhm.
of their evolution as a leader. And but there has to be a level of responsibility and accountability. That's sort of the code that says, what's the code? I am responsible for my life. I take full accountability for my thoughts and actions. If that is not, you do not get access to the door. That is my wisdom, my experience, and my leadership. And so champions have that filter that say there are requirements to be in this space because I'm playing a bigger game. It's why I also say that you will never find a champion, a true champion, criticizing or judging others. It's the people behind you that have the chatter. Real leadership, and I'm going to say this without punching in the face, real leadership is the stance where you have one arm out and one arm back, because the arm out says, I am allowing myself to be lifted and guided and mentored by those ahead of me who have practiced that champion mindset. And I better damn well have my hand back for those who also want to be raised and lifted and are taking their part. Leadership is a function of that stance that says, I'm growing, because every leader I know that has a true champion's heart says, I want to mentor more people. Yes. But they never ask, because a champion also doesn't have time to go find those people all the time because they are focused on due north. Correct. That they need the people willing to show up and say, hey, JB, I really admire you. Would there be a way that you would mentor me in this capacity? I've never yet met a champion who doesn't say yes. Yeah. And think about what you just said, because a good leader will then, as we said earlier, create other leaders who can then also become mentors. So just think about the trickle-down effect we're talking about here that happens all because you as a leader understand how to build your circle carefully. Well, let's just dial in on that. What does your executive team look like? Is it just a group of yes people kissing your ass,
or is it people that have different point of views, different gifts, different talents? Okay, but the same purpose, the same mindset,
and the same core values.
You see,
I heard something recently that so amplifies this and emphasizes this. It's the fact that real leadership is a space where I can share my gifts with others, and I am creating space to receive the gifts from those around me.
Listen to what you just said. And this is a hard thing for a lot of people. You said receive the gift of others.
Because leadership doesn't have it all figured out.
So part of being a good leader, not just a good leader, but a good person, but especially a good leader, is being a good giver, but also a good receiver.
Because here's the thing, and I mean, I've said this before when I'm like, are you playing small in your leadership? And you already know the answer if you have to ask the question.
Right.
If you ever have to ask yourself, am I playing small? The answer is 100% hell yes, because you don't have to ask it when you're in the flow.
Right.
But the question, the three follow-up questions become, who are you not serving in this moment? And that person might be you. Sometimes we forget that real leadership says, I need to replenish my cup.
Right.
Because I'm going to be very clear. One of the things that's changing about leadership, and when we talk about circles, is the notion of, I no longer pour from my cup. The cup is mine. Hard stop. I do best when I pour from the overflow on the saucer, because that's when I can give of my highest and best gifts and put them in service, right? So it's that space of recognizing, who are you not serving in this moment? And it's whoever, it's someone behind you, it's you. Who are you not serving? The second question becomes, whose permission are you taking away? Because what happens is we're like, well, that person wouldn't want to be in my circle. That person wouldn't want to mentor me. We don't give people the opportunity because we're not fully present in our own sense of worth and value to say, JB, I don't know, you might be too busy. It might be great, but I thought I'd ask. I have one, John Gordon gave a testimonial on my first book. He didn't know me from squat. I sent an email. He said yes. End of story. Not end of story. It actually opened up some other opportunities in relationship. my point being is the answer is always no. We start at no, but we take people's permission away to decide. I mean, how many times has somebody in the course of your life asked you a question that it was only in that question that you were like, oh my God, I didn't even know I needed that in my life.
Yeah.
Yes. I've had most of the coaches I work with, some of my clients are like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, right? Like, so whose permission are you taking away? But the third one, and this is interesting because I have a story that goes with this, is who are you not letting shine their light? And so
Ooh.
I can remember having a conversation with one of my best friends from high school. This was years ago. I use this as an actual training story. And I was like, oh, my business is going really well. It's great. I said, man, what a difference. And I was flippantly joking. I said, what a difference from last Thursday. I wanted to be in the fetal position, blah, blah, blah. And she's all of a sudden, she doesn't even remember the conversation, but she said, I don't remember my phone ringing. And I said, what? She said, I don't remember getting a call from you on Thursday. I was like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, please, you're married, 3 kids. One of them's my goddaughter. Like, what? And I'll never forget what she said to me. And it proved it's this point 1,000%. She said, so you get to decide how I get to be your best friend.
Ooh.
And I was like, shit, I hate when my stuff comes back to me. I mean, seriously, we teach what we need to learn ourselves.
Right.
And I was like, what? And she said, Candy, how do you feel when you're the person that people call when they've fallen off that horse? That I'm like, I love being that person. I really do for my inner circle.
Yeah.
I love being the rock for
Yeah.
my, and she goes, then why don't you let anyone do that for
Oh.
you? And she said, friendship isn't about me just celebrating your days that are sunshiny and great and whatnot.
Yeah.
She goes, I signed up to be your friend when it counts.
Ooh.
And I think about, and I did this once for a government agency here in Texas, and the former executive director started crying. He's like, girl, you brought an Oprah moment in here.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, the reality of sitting with, and this is going to make me tear up because this is where I think everything that you and I do in this work, why relationships matter.
Yeah.
We get so caught up as the champion, as the leader, that we think we got to do it all.
Yeah.
And that we got to own it all and we got to carry it all. We're not giving others. It's why it goes back to that first question. Are you really giving people the opportunity to take ownership?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you not letting lead that brings something to the table that has mastery in the very thing you are not letting go?
And you know what else? I love that. But here's another question to go along with that. Who are you not allowing to refill your cup? See, part of that.
Who are you not receiving from?
Yeah. Part of that circle and surrounding yourself with the right people is so that they can fill your cup, help you refill your cup. And think about this. It doesn't always have to be somebody in your company. For some of us, it can be a spouse. For some of us, it can be that best friend that you've known for over 30 years that know you better than anyone. For someone, it could be a parent. Okay. And so
it could be that new friend that's
it could be that
now
new
you're
friend.
building something different.
That's right. And so that's where the discernment comes in, that do these people, do that person fit my inner circle? Do they fit my codes of life? Do they fit my purpose? Do they help me move forward? Do they help me get better? Do they help me grow?
Is there a natural and organic? And I say natural and organic because it's not about tit for tat. And I gave them this and they give me, it's not a scorecard, but is there a natural and organic reciprocity?
Yes.
That says there is a constant dance between giving and receiving. That isn't a, well, JB gave me the 3 things this week. Now I gotta get, it's not that. It's, is there a sense of balance that says we have this way of creating, because real relationships demand reciprocity.
Yeah.
They cannot sustain and function and thrive without a balanced sense of reciprocity.
Right. And I always think about real relationships also. Those people that have those people that you have the real relationships with, they're the ones that will celebrate with you. Okay. And they will cry with you. Okay. They're going to be there when you have your victories, but they're also going to be there in the valley to help you come out of the valley.
I'll tell you what, those friends, you hold them close.
You hold them close. And so for a leader, do you have people like that in your circle? Right.
Well, and I think about it, it's the phrase that I say to people. I said one of the core wounding, especially for those of us that have been any kind of minority, marginalized in any capacity, is do you have a safe space to be soft?
Yeah.
Do you have a safe space to really be
Yeah.
vulnerable and be yourself?
Yeah.
And to the days that you need to cry,
Yeah.
you can do so without it being used against you, or without the shame, or
Exactly.
without the
Yeah.
having a circle. And again, I think the older you get, the whatever, that circle gets tighter.
Yeah.
But that circle matters more than anything when it comes to your ability to keep evolving as a leader.
Absolutely. I love that. Oh man, we could talk about that. We could talk about that
I would
forever.
say we got a whole bunch of things we can pull
We,
out of this
we can.
conversation.
But I want to wrap up those last three. Then code number 8 is stay in the fight. And that simply talks about persistence. Okay. How many times when things get hard do we quit?
Perseverance and persistence.
Persistence. Okay. And so I like to say that being a leader, you don't learn to be a leader at a conference. You learn to be a leader
with a TED Talk or with a podcast.
No, you learn to be a leader when things get hard. That's when you model leadership as well. Who are you as a leader when things get tough?
A good test of that is what happens, and I know I got work to do here. I'm going to say this out loud for anyone that knows me listening. What happens when you get stuck in traffic?
Yeah.
What happens when you have things that are not within your control?
Yeah. Yeah. And so think about that.
And we all have weaknesses there.
We do. And so what does a champion do? They stay in the fight. Not only do they stay in the fight, they expect obstacles. They expect challenges. They plan for them. As a leader, how many times do we expect obstacles and plan for challenges?
Yeah.
How many times do we prepare our team for
and that's where we're going to have a conversation about that, because I want to bring forward a conversation that Brene Brown and Adam Grant had around pre-mortems. We spend so much time around post-mortem, which is how do we debrief after, versus the real leaders have anticipatory discussions around where things could break before they start.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot to be said for leaders that start looking around blind spots before they get smacked in the face with them and shut down.
Right.
There is a value in a pre-mortem and a post-mortem.
Yeah.
And I think being able to talk about that with that champion mindset is huge.
And I love that because and I want to say this to the leaders, it's not always up to you to be that person to see around the corner. That's what your team's good, because some people on your team, that's their gift, to be able to discern and pull out the things the unexpected things that may happen. Okay. For some people, that's their gift. And it may not be your gift as a leader. But do you identify? Do you already know the person or the people on your team that have that gift? And are you allowing them to tap into that? And we're going to talk about a lot more of that when we talk about working genius down the road, of being able to tap into that so that you as a organization, you as a team, are now looking at the potential challenges and pitfalls before they happen. And the power of that when it happens. Last two, codes, respect resources. When I came up with this one, I thought about it and I was like, wow, where'd that come from? But respect resources, okay? And basically, there's a lot of different resources as a leader. And if it's important to us, we manage them. Those can it be money? Yes. It's also time. It's also experience. Okay. Your calendar, that's a resource. What's on your calendar? How are you managing that? Right? And so a champion does that. Again,
it comes back to that word discernment.
Where
am I choosing to invest my time, focus, and energy?
Those are the resources. Now, are you managing those correctly? That's what a champion does.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why when I have conversations with executives and we talk about what's going on in their organization, first question I ask is, do you know your ROI? And we talk about the ROI of relationships, right? In this podcast. And oftentimes it's actually astonishing to me how many people don't even have a real ROI for their business. But when they do, they only equate it into, it's only an equation of money in versus money out. And one of the conversations to this point around respecting resources is, when you're looking at a real ROI, it's a function of time, money, energy, people, resources, lifestyle, and the culture you're creating.
Oh,
And when you don't understand the ROI for all of that, you are not being then a steward of the resources
yes,
to keep this business thriving and to move it
yes.
into its next direction.
And as a leader, we have to be good stewards of our resources, okay?
100%.
Especially if we want more. And then the next one, this is one of my favorites. Be the standard.
Mhm. Walk your talk.
Your life is the message long before your words are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So are you showing up as the person that your people want to model?
Yep.
Be the standard.
I grew up, my dad used to say, which used to really trigger me. He's like, do as I say, not as I do. And I'm like, says the person who doesn't know how to walk in their leadership.
Yeah.
Anytime someone says do something opposite of what they're doing and willing to take accountability and responsibility for, leadership is lacking.
Leadership is lacking.
Because leadership fundamentally to that point is about walking your talk.
Yeah.
Is what you see, what you get.
Yeah.
Is the am I showing you the truth? I said it all the time, right?
Yeah.
When people show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them. Yeah.
When people be like, well, my intention, great. Intention without action is lip service.
Yeah. Every day, all day.
100%. And how many leaders are doing a lot of lip service and not stepping into, because leadership is challenging. It's difficult, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's a team sport.
It's a team sport, and your team's watching you. Okay. They're watching you, and they're watching your actions.
Yep.
Way before they listen to your words.
Well, and I'll give you an example. I used to, my team had a team of consultants when I was still in corporate, when I was a leader there, and they would be traveling all week and whatever. And I would go to them 1 o'clock on a Friday. I'm like, lock it up, put it in the drawer. I want you to go home. You've put in enough hour time, whatever. And it was my boss above me who said, if you're going to tell your team to do that, you need to do the same.
Exactly.
And I was like, what? She goes, your team respects and admires you too much that if they see you hauling ass and busting your ass over the weekend, they're going to do the same. Yeah. So then because I knew how much they needed that, that I would invite them into my office, and I'm like, all right, y'all. And I would show them I was locking my computer up, my laptop in my drawer. And I'm like, I'm done for the day. I expect you all to follow.
Exactly.
And sometimes we'd go have a cocktail, we'd go do something. But it was that space of, she was right.
Yeah.
Because it's also not just about the integrity side of is what they see, what you get. It's if they see you pushing the envelope forward, if they see, if you are an admired leader, your team is going to follow suit. And if you know rest and care and space is required, you have to be willing to model that. And that oftentimes can be even more vulnerable and slippery for leaders that are in integrity, is to allow themselves to demonstrate the care side of leadership and the wellness side of leadership, so that they are modeling. I don't expect my people to work 80 to 100 hours a week.
Right.
I don't expect my people. I expect you to do your job. Your job got done, and now I expect you to go home. It's a job. I laid into one of my people on my team. Well, parallel to me, she was a same role as me in a different position, and she used to send things on the budget on Sunday. And I'm like, enough. You don't get to send budget things to my team until after 11 o'clock on Monday. She's like, I'm not asking them. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
The fact that they see it, they're already thinking about it. Their weekends are theirs.
Yeah.
I don't want it in my inbox until 11. I don't want it in theirs. And I said, she's like, yeah, I go, great, set a timer on it. Yeah. You can do whatever you want to do. And that's you, but that you modeling. And so a lot of people even said, thank you, because it's, how am I supposed to go and have time with my family when all of a sudden, ping,
right,
from you on Monday morning, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No.
And that email doesn't communicate, get to this when you,
and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's even there and present. There is no reason. We have all the little technologies that can set it up, send it out later. It does not matter. Put it in your draft folder that until your timer goes off at 11 a.m., it's not going. I don't give a shit how you do it.
Right.
But no. Yeah. Because we're drawing a hard line that I do not want people plugged into this business 24/7.
Right. And you know, that goes back to the standards that you set. And I love one of the things you just mentioned. It reminded me of a leader that I witnessed this with a leader a few weeks ago. Hardworking leader, one of the best leaders I've ever seen. And she purposely reached out to her team. It was on a Friday, and said, I want you, all of you, to clock your time and take the rest of the day.
Yep.
And do you know? And then when I had a conversation with that said leader 2 weeks later, because before that conversation, she was talking about how her team, the morale was down and they were struggling.
They're burnout.
And then it was just maybe a few days ago, I'm talking to this same leader. She said their energy and their focus was renewed, you know, and a big part of that was because the care that she showed them by saying, hey, I recognize you have been working your asses off. I want you. This is not an option. You're taking Friday off. Yeah. You're taking today off. Go be with your family. Yeah. Sometimes that's the standard.
Human.
Yes.
It's seeing the person.
Yeah.
I think as we start having more, and I think this is a really good place for us to bring this to a close, is these are the conversations and the questions that we're asking, right? It's how do we see more of the human inside of this very fast-paced culture and business and thing that we're doing, and how do we create spaces for people to not only be seen and feel safe, but to do that for those around them? Because each and every one of us has a part in, because again, I can't make you feel safe. That's also a choice. Yeah. But it requires a level of vulnerability and it requires a level of leadership we all need to participate in. Right. And it starts top down. Yeah,
it starts top down. And as leaders, we can create the space where people can feel safe and seen, which is what we're talking about when it comes to.
I don't know about you, but I'm excited about where these conversations are.
I am too.
It was really good having this one today.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode
of Safe and Seen.
And that's a wrap of Safe and Seen with JB and Candy.
Remember, leadership isn't about always having the right answer.
It's about being willing to ask the questions that matter.
Having the courage to really listen.
To seek to understand.
And to create the kind of space where people feel safe enough to tell the truth.
And seen enough to bring all of who they are.
Because when people feel safe and seen, trust grows.
When trust grows, connection deepens.
And when connection becomes the foundation,
everything changes.
Until next time,
stay curious,
stay courageous,
and keep creating spaces where people can be safe and seen.
Be sure to subscribe
so you don't miss the next episode.